Oren Vyre had long ago reached the point where exhaustion stopped feeling like fatigue and became the background radiation of his existence. His hands worked on their own, stabilize, scan, seal, disinfect, while his brain wandered off to contemplate philosophical questions such as, if the universe was infinite, why wasn't his shift ever over? Astronine triage ward was the usual mosaic of chaos. Too bright lighting, walls that hummed with distant reactor noise, drifting antiseptic vapor, and the subtle metallic sting of blood baked into air filters older than him. Human Marines, Karyth scouts, merchant crew caught in someone's political tantrum. The galaxy never ran out of ways to hurt people, and Oren never stopped trying to fix the damage faster than it accumulated. Trauma Bay incoming, Code Crimson, the intercom snapped. Code Crimson meant someone important, someone bleeding, and someone whose guards were going to be a nightmare. Oren grabbed his kit, pushed through the curtain, and froze. 3 Karyth honor guards stood like carved obsidian, towering over the exam bed where their charge lay. Their armor pulsed faint crimson with their species, adrenal surge, and every muscle in their posture said, touch her wrong and we will vaporize you. Then Oren saw the patient. Even injured, she didn't look mortal. Her skin carried the Karyth metallic sheen, silver gold that caught light like liquid metal. Her features were precise, symmetrical in a way nature only achieved with spectacular intent. Strands of bioluminescent crest tendrils traced from her temples, usually brilliant, now dimmed by shock. Yet her gaze was steady, sharp, assessing everything and revealing nothing. He'd treated Karyth before, but this one she radiated command with the quiet gravitational pull of a star. Oren forced his body into autopilot. I'm Medic Vyre. Pain scale. 1 is annoying. 10 is please sedate me before I embarrass myself. Her amber eyes fixed on him with piercing clarity. 7, she said. 8 for the arm. He nodded. Honest, I like it. Pretending it's a 3 just makes my job harder. Her armor lay half removed, revealing plasma burns along her ribs, and yep, her right shoulder sat at an angle that should not exist. He prepared the pain inhibitor. This'll numb things. Reduction will be fast but unpleasant. She gave a short nod, precise, disciplined, like she'd been trained to endure agony without acknowledging it. When the medication settled, Oren positioned her arm. Ready? He asked. Yes. 1, 2. He always did it on 2. Anticipation was crueler than pain. The joint slid back with a clean, horrible pop. She hissed sharply but controlled it with almost superhuman discipline. Worst part's done, he said gently. Now let's handle these burns before they get ideas. You are meticulous, she murmured. I've been accused of worse. He cleaned plasma scoring, applied regenerative salve, and sealed the dressing with careful precision. When he stepped back, she studied him with an intensity that felt too focused, too sharp. What is your name? She asked. Oren Vyre, and you? The honor guard stiffened instantly, as if bracing for impact. The woman answered softly. Lysara Vel'kana. The name landed like a dropped weight. His brain needed 1 full second to catch up. Then, though, because Lysara Vel'kana was not merely a Karyth name, she was the Karyth name, High Empress, Supreme Commander. The Steel Sovereign, the woman entire warfronts retreated from on sight. Oren blinked. Well, your shoulder's fixed at least. The guards looked ready to faint or murder him, possibly both. 2 hours later, they hauled him into a chamber that looked designed by someone allergic to comfort. Obsidian walls. A table polished enough to expose every regret he'd ever had. Human and Karyth officials filed in, looking like they'd all bitten something sour. Oren Vyre, Ambassador Reese began, do you understand what you've done? He tried honesty. I fixed someone's shoulder and treated plasma burns. A normal Tuesday. You invoked the right of Aegis, a Karyth minister said darkly. Only healers who tend the Empress in active conflict zones trigger it. Trigger what? You are now her provisional life guardian. Her what now? It is ancient law, Reese said, designed to prevent assassinations disguised as treatment. So I'm punished for doing competent medical work. No, the minister said. Yes, Reese said. Oren raised a hand. I'm begging you to coordinate. The explanation continued, each sentence worse than the last. He couldn't leave. The Empress had to publicly release him. Political factions would interpret this as alliance shift. Assassination attempts were likely. Great, Oren said flatly. Love that for me. After 2 days of enforced luxury that felt like a very polite prison, they brought him to her. The chamber was vast, lit by cold starlight. Lysara stood alone, no advisors, no armor, no guards, only presence. When her eyes met his, some of the steel softened. "Medic Vyre," she said, "do you wish to be released from the rite of Aegis?" He swallowed. "Before I answer, why didn't you release me immediately?" Her silence stretched, measured, heavy. "When I rule," she said quietly, "I am treated as a symbol, a weapon, a fear. No one speaks without calculating consequence. No one touches me without trembling. You were the first in decades who treated me as simply injured, not dangerous, not divine, just hurt." She met his eyes. "That is rarer than you know." Before he could respond, a concussive blast ripped through the chamber, metal shrieked, lights shattered, pressure slammed outward in a shockwave that rattled his teeth. Alarms screamed. A guard sprinted in. "High Empress," the explosion targeted the human as secured quarters. Lysara turned to Oren, and he saw, for the first time, unrestrained fury burn in her, or an expected panic, or shouting, or an immediate security lockdown that involved being thrown into a bunker so deep he'd never see starlight again. What actually happened was far stranger. Lysara moved, not with haste, not with fear, with precision. The chamber doors slid open before she even reached them, the honor guards falling into formation like gravity pulling planets into orbit. Oren was swept along, not touched, not grabbed, but the sheer momentum of a royal security escort carried him whether he wanted it or not. The hallway lights flickered from the aftershocks of the explosion. Somewhere distant, emergency bulkheads slammed into place with metallic finality. Was the blast big? Oren asked one of the guards because his brain defaulted to commentary in moments of terror. "Significant," the guard said flatly. "Significant as in structural damage, or significant as in I nearly stopped existing." "Yes," Oren sighed, helpful. They reached a secured transit lift that plunged them toward a lower deck, so quickly Oren's stomach attempted escape through his spine. Lysara stood opposite him, unmoving, eyes narrowed, not with fear but calculation. Her bioluminescent crest pulsed faintly, the glow returning as adrenaline sharpened her focus. "You were not in your quarters?" she asked without looking at him. "No, but only because I was busy being interrogated about accidentally acquiring a political death sentence." Her eyes flicked toward him. "Then your poor timing saved your life." "Story of my career, actually." The lift doors opened to a corridor reinforced with plating thick enough to survive a small war. A new group of guards waited, human and Karyth together, which told Oren one thing clearly. Both governments were panicking. A Karyth general approached, bowed sharply. "High Empress, the blast site was isolated, 3 suspects detained, motives unclear." "Are they alive?" Lysara asked. "For now." A single raised brow from her made the general swallow audibly. "For questioning," he clarified quickly. "They will remain alive for questioning." "Good," she said. "If they perish before they speak, ensure whoever interrogates them joins them." The general blanched. Oren considered pretending he didn't hear that. They brought him into a new secured chamber, far nicer than the first one he'd been confined to. It had a bed, a desk, a private sanitation unit, and guards visible through the door panel, stationed like statues. "I really don't need this level of protection," Oren said. "Statistically speaking, I'm far more likely to die of workplace stress." "You are under the right," Lysara responded simply. "You are under my shield. While that bond exists, your life is my responsibility. Anyone who threatens it threatens me. They will be dealt with." He swallowed. That's reassuring in a mildly terrifying way. She approached him, close enough that he could see the faint new sheen of regrown skin beneath her armor, where the salve had begun its work. Close enough to notice her height, taller than most humans, posture so perfect it made gravity look like a suggestion. "You did not request the right," she said. "Yet you are caught in it. That is unjust." "Most things that happen to me on duty are unjust," Oren said. "But this is new." Something flickered in her expression, not amusement, something quieter, more human. "You do not fear me," she said, almost curious. Oren blinked. "Should I? I have ended wars," she replied. "My name is used to silence rebellions. Children across 3 sectors are frightened into obedience with stories of the Steel Sovereign. And yet you address me as though I were simply another patient." "Because you were," Oren said gently. "You were hurt, and hurting overrides titles in my job." He expected anger at that, or cold dismissal. What he got instead was silence, deep, contemplative, almost fragile silence. Then, a violent crack sounded through the deck. A tremor rattled the walls, the lights shuddered. The guards reacted instantly. The door slammed shut. Shields activated with a rising hum. Oren found himself instinctively stepping closer to Lysara, not because he thought she needed protection, but because his human instincts equated proximity with safety. The Empress, by contrast, stepped in front of him. "What was that?" Oren asked. A guard's voice came through the comm. "Attempted breach on the auxiliary entrance, repelled, unknown number of assailants." "Unknown," Oren repeated faintly. "How inspiring." Lysara turned to him. "Medic Vyre, listen carefully. These attacks are not random, they are coordinated. Someone wishes to end the rite by ending you." "Well, that's rude." Her jaw tightened. "It will not happen." "You can't promise that." "I can," she said, "and I have." He took a slow breath. "So, what happens now?" "You remain here until I have identified every faction involved." Her eyes hardened and eliminated them. "That's, wow, very comforting and also vaguely horrifying." "For Karyth leaders," she said, "these politics are routine. Well, for humans, this is slightly above routine. This is an event." There it was again, that flicker of something beneath her armor of control. A guard approached and bowed. "High Empress, the Council demands your presence. They insist the rite be dissolved immediately to prevent escalation." "And do you insist?" Lysara asked Oren. He blinked, caught off guard. "Me." "Yes, you are the one bound by it." Oren opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again like a confused fish. "I don't know what I want," he admitted. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for enemies, or a title, or a political storm." She stepped closer. "Then what do you want?" He thought about it, really thought about it. "I want to not die," he said finally. "That," she said softly, "I can grant. And I want to understand why you didn't release me when you had the chance." For a moment he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "When you treated me," she said quietly, "you made no calculation, no deference, no fear. You offered unguarded kindness in a moment when I had none for myself." Her eyes held his, bright, intense, unshielded. "I have not been treated like a person in many years, Oren Vyre. You reminded me how it feels." Oren exhaled slowly. "That's a lot of responsibility to put on a medic with questionable life choices." "You handled my injuries," she said. "With expertise, you can handle this." He rubbed his face. "Well, I suppose if assassins won't leave me alone either way. Being protected by the galaxy's most dangerous woman is statistically advantageous." Lysara's eyes softened, just barely. "Then you choose to remain under the rite." "Until I understand what this all means," Oren said carefully. "I'm not requesting release." Outside, muffled arguments erupted. Council voices raised in outrage. Lysara turned toward the door, her presence shifting back into imperial steel. "Remain here," she said. "No harm will reach you, not while I draw breath." She walked out, guards falling in behind her, leaving Oren alone with the distant echo. Oren didn't know how long Lysara was gone, but the sounds leaking through the reinforced walls made time irrelevant. Distant shouting, heavy footsteps, the sharp, metallic echo of an armored fist slamming into a command table. Someone yelled in Karyth. Someone else yelled back in human standard. A guard outside his door muttered something about this being worse than the Kepler Accord's meltdown, which didn't help Oren's blood pressure. He paced the length of the secured room, 7 steps across, 5 steps back, wearing a groove into the polished floor. His heart still hammered from the second attack, not fear exactly. More like the creeping realization that his life had pivoted from overworked medic to target in a multi-species political knife fight. He rubbed his face. "I fix shoulders," he whispered into the empty room. "Why is this my life?" The door finally opened. Lysara entered first. No guards, no entourage, no ceremonial posture. That alone told Oren something went very wrong or very right. He couldn't tell which. Her expression was unreadable, like she'd rebuilt her composure molecule by molecule before walking in. "You're unharmed," she said. "You say that like it's surprising." "It is," she replied, "given the day." Oren gestured vaguely to the walls. "So, how'd it go? Did your council agree to stop trying to murder me with bureaucracy?" Her eyes narrowed, not at him, but at memory. "They disagreed, loudly, passionately, incorrectly." "That sounds diplomatic." "I was not diplomatic." Oren blinked. "Should I be concerned?" "No," she said simply. "They should be." She walked past him, briefly brushing his shoulder. A nearly invisible gesture, but enough to make the guards outside stiffen instinctively. Lysara glanced around the room, assessing it the same way she'd assessed the battlefield injuries he treated earlier, quick, clinical, efficient. Your protection will increase, she said. Anyone attempting to approach you without authorization will be stopped. Stopped how? Oren asked, permanently. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Lysara, I'm a medic, not a warlord. You are under my aegis. That makes you a priority. That's the problem. I don't want to be anyone's. The lights flickered again. She turned instantly, hand on the hilt of the thin, curved-bladed weapon she wore even in diplomatic chambers. It is only a power transfer, she said after a moment. Repairs from the blast. Oren let out a shaky breath. This place is going to give me cardiac issues. You will not die of cardiac issues, she said. Not while I am here. That's both comforting and mildly intimidating, thanks. She faced him fully then, reins of authority loosening just slightly. I asked the council a question, she said, one they did not appreciate. What did you ask? Why they believed the presence of a human medic threatens the Empire more than the corruption within their own ranks. Oren snorted. I bet that went over well. I believe the correct human phrase is like a plasma grenade in a laundry chute. He stared. You learned that phrase from who? One of my intelligence officers. A beat, he speaks colorfully. Oren laughed, a short, exhausted burst he couldn't hold back. Lysara watched him, expression softening like she discovered a new phenomenon. Your laughter, she said, is oddly reassuring. That's because I'm one laughing spasm away from a breakdown. That is still an improvement over fear. He sank onto the edge of the bed. Lysara, why are they so terrified of this, right? Why does it matter so much who bandaged your wounds? She stepped closer, the faint bioluminescence of her crest casting soft gold across the room. Because, she said quietly, there are those who believe vulnerability undermines authority, and being treated with compassion publicly, visibly, threatens the image they expect me to maintain. That's ridiculous. It is traditional. Tradition is overrated, Oren muttered, especially when it tries to kill me. Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. Agreed. A soft chime sounded from her wrist console. She glanced down, eyes narrowing. The detained conspirators have begun confessing. Oren's eyes widened, just like that already. The interrogation methods of my internal security branch are efficient. He hesitated. Do I want to know what that means? No, great. Lysara turned off the console with a sharp gesture. Their testimony confirms what I suspected. You are not the target, I am. That doesn't make me feel better. It should, she said. They intend to pressure me by threatening you. But they misunderstand something. What? Threatening what I protect only makes me more ruthless. Oren swallowed. That is a terrifying sentence. And true. She crossed her arms, considering him with that same intense, evaluating gaze she'd used in the medical bay. But now there was something else layered beneath it. You did not request release from the right, she said. You still choose not to. I'm still processing, Oren admitted, but I'm trying to trust my instincts. And what do they tell you? He sighed. That running from you won't solve anything, but staying near you might. For the first time since he met her, Lysara looked genuinely taken aback, not dramatically, just a tiny shift in her posture, a narrowing of breath. You trust me? She asked. I trust that you won't let me die, Oren said softly. And I trust that you didn't keep me bound just to use me. Silence stretched between them. Heavy, fragile, dangerous in a completely different way from explosions. Then, Lysara stepped closer. Close enough that he could see the healed edges of the burn he'd treated. Close enough to smell the faint metallic edge of Karyth armor mixed with something warm and sharp like starlight and ozone. I kept you bound, she said quietly, because I have been surrounded by fear and reverence for decades. You offered neither. You offered honesty. You offered gentleness. And I refused to let those be taken from me. Oren's heart thudded once too loud. You deserve to be treated like a person, he said. And you, she replied, deserve to live. Before either could speak again, the door burst open. 2 guards rushed in. Hi, Empress, one said. A transmission from the Karyth Military Council. They demand your immediate presence, and they are preparing a vote of authority challenge if you do not comply. Lysara's eyes narrowed with lethal calm. So, she said, they have chosen open conflict. Oren stared. Conflict as in. Political, she said, for now. She turned to him, her voice low. Stay here. Do not open this door for anyone but me. Lysara. She placed a hand briefly, shockingly gently on his forearm. Oren once believed that waiting was the least dramatic part of medical work. Waiting for scans. waiting for test results, waiting for a patient to wake up, but waiting while an alien imperial council debated whether to overthrow their Empress because she refused to abandon him. This was a new level of anxiety. He paced again, 7 steps across, 5 steps back, listening to the muffled arguments bleeding through walls too thick for sound to realistically travel through. Something about Karyth architecture conducted fury. He tried sitting. Worse, tried lying down. Worse, tried meditating. Disastrous. His brain spun in spirals. What if she didn't come back? What if they forced her to dissolve the rite? What if her refusal sparked a civil fracture? What if? The door opened without warning. 2 honor guards entered first, scanning the room with such intensity Oren wondered if they expected assassins to materialize out of thin air. Then Lysara stepped in. She looked unchanged, which was impressive considering the world was probably on fire behind her. Regal, controlled. Her crest glowed faintly, a pulse of gold sliding along the tendrils. A sign she was both focused and furious. "You're alive," Oren said before his brain caught up. She raised an eyebrow. Was there doubt? "A little. This place has tried to explode twice since breakfast. Breakfast was 18 hours ago." "Great, love that." She moved further inside, dismissing the guards with a flick of her hand. They hesitated because leaving her alone with him was, politically, a statement, but obeyed. The door sealed. Silence. Then she exhaled, quiet, controlled, but very real. "The council challenged my authority," she said, "and I shut them down." He blinked, just like that. Her expression sharpened. "No, not just like that. They attempted to leverage tradition against me. Claimed the right of Aegis with a human undermines imperial strength. Accused me of irrationality, weakness." She stepped closer. "I reminded them," she continued, voice low, "that weakness is allowing fear to dictate policy. Strength is choosing what is right, even when it is not convenient." Oren swallowed, and they accepted that. "No," she said simply, "but they will obey." "Oh, that's intense." She studied him then, gaze softer than her words. "Are you well?" "Physically, yes. Emotionally, absolutely not. Mentally, I'm somewhere between existential dread and resigned acceptance." "That is expected." "I figured." She approached until only a meter separated them. Oren could see faint tension in her posture, shoulders held too rigid, jaw tight, hands clasped behind her back to hide the tremor of adrenaline. She looked like someone who'd stood against a storm and refused to move. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "We stabilize the situation," she said. "Expose those behind the attacks. Secure your position. Secure mine." "My position." "Lysara, my position is medic accidentally involved in imperial drama." She tilted her head. "Incorrect. You are now a symbol. Resistance factions see you as leverage. Diplomats see you as shift in alliance. My people see you as unexpected. That's a polite word for it. You underestimate your impact. Or everyone else is overreacting. No, you forget what you did." Her voice softened. "You treated me without fear, without calculation. Without seeing a crown. That alone disrupts everything." He opened his mouth to argue, but a sharp knock struck the door. The guards returned instantly, escorting in a human military envoy. Commander Ellis, square jaw, immaculate uniform, permanent expression of disapproval. "Dr. Vyre," Ellis said stiffly. "A word." Lysara stepped between them. The shift so subtle yet so unmistakable Oren felt the air tilt around her. "Anything you say to him, you say in my presence." Ellis swallowed. "Of course, High Empress." He cleared his throat. "Human leadership is concerned." "Understandable," Oren muttered. Ellis continued. "We believe the safest course of action is a formal withdrawal from the rite. A scripted ceremony, mutual statements of respect, temporary relocation of Dr. Vyre until tensions settle." Lysara's expression turned glacial. "No." Ellis stiffened, "With respect." "No," she repeated. "I will not dissolve what he has not requested to end." Oren felt something warm unfurl in his chest, and something cold settle in his stomach. Ellis turned to Oren. "Doctor, the political cost is enormous. You are endangering yourself, and possibly thousands." Oren hated that he wasn't wrong. He felt Lysara's eyes on him, waiting, not pressuring, but waiting. "Oren," Ellis said softly, "say the word and we'll pull you out of this." He looked at the floor, at his hands, at the faint smear of dried salve still on his knuckles, remnants from treating the woman who now stood silently behind him. He looked up. "I'm not requesting release," Oren said quietly. "Not yet." Ellis's jaw tightened. "Then I hope you understand the consequences." I do, Oren said, and I'll deal with them. Ellis left without another word. Silence filled the room, thick, charged, almost electric. Lysara stepped closer, very close. You chose to stay, she said softly. For now, yes. Do you regret it? He looked up at her. At the faint glow of her crest, the sharp lines softened by exhaustion, the strength and fragility interwoven behind her authority. No, he said, I don't. Something shifted. Not dramatically, just the faintest softening of her eyes, a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Oren, she said quietly, there is something more you must understand. What is it? She hesitated. When the right formalizes, it binds both lives. Your fate and mine become inseparable. Enemies merge. Responsibilities merge. Your safety becomes imperial priority. Your voice gains weight in my council. If you remain, you will not be an observer in this conflict. I never wanted to be. Yet you are, her gaze held his, and if you stay, you will shape what comes next. Oren swallowed, and if I go, you will still be hunted, she said plainly. Those who attacked you did so because they believed your existence threatened my authority. That belief will not vanish with a ceremony. So staying is dangerous, but leaving is also dangerous. Yes, and either way, someone wants me dead. Yes, he sighed, fantastic. Her lips twitched. Your humor remains intact. It's my only survival mechanism at this point. Another chime echoed from her console. She glanced at it. Her expression changed, subtly, sharply. What? Oren asked. The suspects confessed additional details, she said. There is another faction, higher ranking, more dangerous. How dangerous? Dangerous enough, she said, that I must deal with them personally. She stepped toward the door. Oren instinctively reached out, fingers brushing her forearm before he could stop himself. Lysara, he said quietly, be careful. She turned slowly as if surprised by the contact. For a moment, just a moment, the Empress vanished and the person remained. I will return, she said. He nodded. I'll be here. Lysara did return. Not in hours, but in what felt like a lifetime compressed into a single cycle of the station's artificial day-night sequence. Oren slept in fits, waking at every distant vibration, every flicker of light, every overheard murmur from the guards. When the door finally opened, he was halfway through a truly terrible cup of synthesized coffee. Lysara stepped inside wearing full battle regalia. He'd seen Karyth armor before, sleek, segmented, built for mobility and intimidation. But hers was another category entirely. Deep obsidian plates traced with faint crimson filaments pulsed to her heartbeat. The high collar framed her face like a crown forged into metal. Her crest glowed brighter than he'd ever seen, every tendril lit from within. There were faint scorch marks along one pauldron. You're hurt, Oren said immediately, setting the mug aside. Not significantly, she replied. Others fared worse. He crossed the room anyway, scanning her with the instinct of a medic whose world made sense in terms of injuries and treatments. A superficial plasma graze along her forearm. A concussive bruise at the ribs, nothing critical, nothing she'd admit slowed her. Sit, he said automatically. Her brows rose. You command your Empress now. I command injuries, he said. You just happen to be wearing some. For a heartbeat, she looked like she might argue. Then she sat. Not on the imposing chair near the wall, but on the edge of his bed, armor creaking softly under the unfamiliar posture. The visual of the Karyth High Empress perched on the blanket of a human medic's secure quarters bed would have caused at least 3 diplomats to faint on the spot. Oren began a more detailed examination, hands moving with efficient, gentle familiarity. He worked in silence until she spoke. The conspiracy reached higher than I believed, she said. Several members of my military council, 2 sector governors, a security director, all in contact with the cell that targeted your quarters. Oren swallowed. Because of me. Because of what you represent, she corrected. A human under the right challenges their certainty, their narratives, their control. He worked salve into the burn on her forearm. So they tried to blow me up to preserve tradition. Precisely. Excellent, love being a symbol. It's so good for my stress levels. Her lips curved faintly. You are handling this better than most of my generals would. That's because your generals are used to wielding power. I'm used to improvising with half the supplies I need and a patient bleeding on the floor. Different baselines. He finished sealing the salve and sat back. There, you'll live again. Try not to get into close quarters war with your own council more than, say, 3 times a week. Twice at most, she said. I am attempting moderation. He huffed a soft laugh. They sat in silence for a moment that felt strangely peaceful. Outside, the station thrummed with ongoing activity. Patrol routes reconfigured, security doubled, diplomatic channels flooded with speculation. Inside, it was just a medic and an Empress sharing air and tension and exhaustion. "What happens to them?" Oren asked quietly. "The ones who tried to kill me, and you." "They will stand public trial," she said. "Karyth justice is not subtle. And then they will cease to be a problem." He considered arguing about ethics, then thought better of it. This wasn't a triage ward. This was an empire. Instead, he said, "You know this is going to ripple outward, right? Even if we survive all the assassination attempts and council drama. You keeping me under the right, it changes things." "Yes, on both sides. Yes." He studied her. "And you're certain it's worth it?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes." Something inside his chest did a strange, complicated thing. The days that followed blurred into a new kind of normal, a normal that included personal guards, security clearances, and a schedule carefully balanced between life-threatening and marginally less life-threatening. Oren was relocated again, this time to a wing of the station designated for joint initiatives, which apparently meant places we put people both governments are nervous about but don't want to admit they're nervous about. His new workspace was a hybrid medical research suite. Human diagnostic rigs humming alongside Karyth bioresonance arrays. Med-techs from both species learning how not to break each other by accident. He liked it more than he expected. "You're the only one who's treated both anatomies under live fire conditions," the human director said, shoving a data slate into his hands. "You're now in charge of cross-species emergency protocols." "I what?" Oren blinked. "No, I'm a field medic. I patch people. I'm not." "Congratulations on the promotion," the director said, already walking away. The Karyth liaison, a stoic physician named Veln, inclined his head. "Your methods in the triage bay were effective. We will adapt them." So Oren did what he always did when thrown into chaos with no warning. He worked. He taught Karyth medics how to interpret human vital sign fluctuations that weren't actually fatal. He showed human nurses how to read the subtle shifts in Karyth crest light that indicated pain or distress. He designed triage tags that could be read by both species scanning tech. He argued with supply officers about stocking both human and Karyth-compatible analgesics in the same crash kits. He slept little. He snapped at anyone who suggested taking it easy. He found to his surprise that the constant focus helped keep the fear at bay. Lysara visited, not constantly, not dramatically, just regularly. Sometimes she dropped by under the pretense of reviewing joint medical progress, sometimes under the pretense of checking his security, sometimes with no pretense at all. She listened when he explained why mixing certain regeneration compounds was a terrible idea. He listened when she talked through defense grid reconfigurations and how they related to casualty projections. They argued, often. "You can't keep troops on that rotation," he said one afternoon, pointing at her tactical projections. "Sleep deprivation alone will increase medical incidents by 15%. "They must be ready," she countered. "Any reduction in readiness invites attack. Any collapse from exhaustion invites death." She stared at the numbers, at him. "Then propose an alternative," she said. He did, she implemented it. Word spread quickly. The Empress was adjusting military schedules based on recommendations from a human medic. Some found it insulting. Others found it intriguing. Many found it terrifying. Oren tried not to think about any of them and focused on his charts. On the 49th day after the rite was invoked, he found her in the observation deck, alone. The deck arced above the station's spine, a curved window showing a sweep of starfield and the faint shimmer of the nearest nebula. Lysara stood with hands clasped behind her back, gaze fixed on the void like she was reading secrets in the scattered light. He hesitated at the entrance, permission to enter. She glanced back, something like amusement ghosting over her features. "You do not need permission. I feel like I always need permission in rooms this dramatic." He stepped up beside her. For a moment they just watched the stars. "When I took the throne," she said quietly, "I ordered this deck constructed. My council protested. They said it was wasteful, vulnerable, decorative." "Why did you insist?" he asked. "Because I needed a place to remember what all of this is for," she said. "The wars, the treaties, the constant vigilance. It is easy to forget, trapped in chambers and reports. Out here I see the space my people travel. The colonies they build. The lives they live beyond my direct command. That's surprisingly poetic, Oren said. I also occasionally come here to avoid meetings, she added. There it is, he said, the honesty. She glanced sideways at him. We are approaching the end of the provisional period. He nodded, I know. In 11 days, she said, we must choose, formalize the right or dissolve it. Your council still wants it dissolved, I'm guessing. Desperately. And you? She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes remained on the stars. When I was young, she said, I believed leadership meant isolation, that to protect my people I must stand apart. Untouched, uncompromised, it was effective but lonely. She looked at him then. You disrupted that. I didn't mean to, he said softly. I know, that is why it matters. He exhaled, fogging the transparasteel for a second. Lysara, if formalizing this right means civil unrest, assassination attempts, and a lifetime of being hunted, maybe dissolving it is better. For your people, for you, and leave you undefended, she asked. I was undefended before you ever walked into my triage bay. Her gaze sharpened. You think I would return you to that? I think you've already upset your entire political ecosystem enough on my behalf, he said. I don't want to be the reason your empire fractures. Her jaw tightened, and I do not want to teach my people that fear dictates our choices. That compassion is disposable when it becomes inconvenient. The words hung between them like charged plasma. He turned to face her fully. What do you want, Lysara? Not the Empress, not the Steel Sovereign, just you. Silence, her crest light pulsed once slowly. I want, she stopped, restarted. I want a life where I am not only a weapon, where my existence is not measured solely in victories and casualties prevented, where someone will look at me and see more than a crown. That's a tall order, he said gently. And you, she asked, what do you want, Oren Vyre? He thought about it, about the field hospitals, the endless shifts, the faces he couldn't save, about explosions and threats and council rooms full of people arguing about his existence, about designing triage protocols that might save hundreds, about standing here now with a woman who could command fleets and still asked his opinion. I want to keep fixing people, he said, but not just patching them so they can go back to breaking each other. I want this. Joint teams, shared knowledge, fewer body bags on both sides. And I don't want to walk away from the one person in power who actually seems to care about any of that. She studied him the way she had the first time, like she could see muscle and bone and all the things beneath. Then we stand at a crossroads, she said. Yeah, he said, we do. Outside, a comet streaked past, a brief flare of light against the dark. Inside, two people who had never been allowed to choose anything for themselves stood on the edge of a decision that could reshape everything. In 11 days, Oren had expected the final days of the provisional right to feel like a countdown. Instead, they felt like suspension, like the entire station was holding its breath, afraid to exhale until the decision was made. Meetings multiplied. Security thickened. Rumors spread faster than medicinal alcohol evaporating in dry air. Human officers whispered that the Empress might formalize the right out of defiance. Karyth officials whispered that she might do it out of sentiment. Neither group understood the truth. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was about choice, something neither Oren nor Lysara had been given very often in their lives. On the 10th day, a joint human, Karyth delegation arrived at Oren's workspace, flanked by armed escorts. Dr. Vyre, Ambassador Rhys said tightly, we need an answer now. Oren folded his arms. I said I'd think about it. I'm still thinking. The deadline is tomorrow, Rhys insisted. Tensions are reaching critical levels. The Empress is under immense scrutiny, and so are you. So what's new? Oren muttered. The Karyth minister beside her stared down at him with cool disdain. You may end this conflict by stepping aside. The right is ancient, sacred. It was not meant for humans. Neither were half the catastrophic things your people throw at us, Oren shot back. Both diplomats stiffened. The minister's crest flared in offense. Rhys pinched the bridge of her nose. Oren, please, she said. If you walk away today, we can control the fallout. He paused. Can she? He asked quietly. Silence. You're not asking me to step aside for peace, Oren said. You're asking me to step aside so she doesn't have to choose between me and her empire. Rhys looked away. That was answer enough. He exhaled slowly. Then I'll wait for her decision. The delegation left, the air in the room still vibrating faintly with unsaid arguments. Lysara found him that evening, not with guards, not with ceremony, just herself. She stepped into the room quietly as if unsure whether she was welcome, which was absurd. She was the Empress, but the uncertainty was real. "Oren," she said softly. He turned. "How bad is it?" Bad, she didn't sugarcoat. 4 military houses have threatened withdrawal of support. 2 governors declared the right invalid. A human diplomat suggested I should dissolve it for the greater good. Reese told me. Lysara's expression tightened. "And what did you tell her?" "That I'm waiting to hear from you." She was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice wasn't the hard edge of a ruler. It was careful, almost fragile. "My council believes the right will destabilize the empire. They say it makes me vulnerable. That tying myself to you is a strategic liability." Oren nodded once. "And what do you believe?" She stepped closer. "For decades, I believed leaders must be untouchable. That power must be distant. That to be respected, I must be feared. And now," her crest dimmed slightly, that soft golden pulse slowing. "Now I know fear builds walls, not strength. And you showed me a different path." Oren swallowed. "Lysara, I don't want to be the reason your entire political structure burns down. And I do not want my people to believe compassion is weakness." There it was, the impossible equation they'd been orbiting for weeks. He sank onto the edge of the desk. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know something." She tilted her head. "I never treated you because you were Empress. I didn't care about titles. I treated you because you were hurt and scared and trying not to show it. You were just a person in pain." She stared at him, really stared, as if committing his features to memory. "That," she whispered, "is the reason I cannot let this go." Before he could process that, the station lights shifted, soft gold to deep red. "Emergency alert." Lysara instantly straightened. "That isn't a drill." His communicator chimed moments later. "Security alert. Hostile Karyth factions mobilizing near council wing. Potential attempt to seize control before right deadline." "Of course," Oren muttered. "Why make things simple?" Lysara moved toward the door but paused, looked back. "Oren, stay here. Guards will arrive in moments. Do not leave with anyone but me." "Lysara, this is not a request." She vanished down the corridor, armor whispering like a promise of violence. The next 40 minutes were a blur of distant detonations, shouts, energy shield hum, and the kind of chaos Oren had learned to interpret by sound alone. He pressed a hand to the wall, feeling each vibration like a heartbeat. Finally, the door hissed open. Lysara stumbled in, half supported by 2 honor guards. Her armor was scorched, fractured. One gauntlet hung by a sparking strip of metal. She waved the guards off and crossed the room on sheer willpower. "You're hurt," Oren breathed. "Minor," she lied. He caught her by the arm and guided her to a bench. She allowed it, another sign something had gone terribly wrong. "Oren," she said, breath controlled but strained. "They attempted a coup. It failed, but they will try again. Tomorrow's vote will be challenged with force if necessary. So the right formalization might start a war." "Yes, and dissolving it." Her jaw tightened. "They will interpret it as concession, weakness. They will move to replace me." Oren stared at her, this woman who carried entire star systems on her shoulders, and a clarity settled into him like gravity. "You can't win either way." "No," she said, "but I can choose the fight I want." He knelt in front of her, resting his hands on her bracers. "Then what do you choose?" She looked at him, the medic who'd treated her, the man she risked political collapse to protect, the human who refused to run. "I choose truth," she said quietly. "I choose what is real. I choose the bond that was formed without fear." He exhaled. "Lysara, are you saying?" "Yes," she said. "If you remain under the right, if you accept formalization, I will stand with you against all who oppose it. I will shield you with everything I am, even if it fractures your empire." She shook her head. "No, if it fractures, it means it was already broken long before you arrived." He stared at her battered armor, glowing crest, fierce determination burning in her eyes, and realized the decision had already been made in him days ago. "I'm not stepping away," he said. "Not from this, not from you." Her breath caught not dramatically, but just enough. "Then tomorrow," she whispered, "we stand together." The ceremonial chamber was overflowing. Human diplomats lined one side. Karyth nobles filled the other. Security stood everywhere, tension so thick Oren felt it on his skin. When Lysara entered, silence slammed through the room like a blast wave. Her armor polished, repaired, regal, her crest blazing like a crown of living fire. Her presence made the air vibrate. Oren followed behind her, not as prisoner, not as liability, but as chosen guardian. She stepped onto the dais and spoke with a voice that cut through the chamber like a blade through silence. For 30 years, I have ruled by strength alone. Today, I rule with something stronger. Murmurs erupted. She raised a hand, instant obedience. Compassion is not weakness, trust is not weakness. And honoring the one who offered both when I was most vulnerable is not weakness. She looked at Oren. Oren Vyre, do you accept the right of Aegis fully and permanently, knowing it binds your life to mine? He took a slow, steady breath. I do. And do you swear to stand beside me, not in fear but in truth? I swear. The room erupted, rage, shock, disbelief. Lysara ignored all of it. She stepped toward him, lifted her gauntleted hand and placed it against his chest, right over his heart. Then I, Lysara Vel'kana,